in the deepest crevice of the Starfall Mountains, where the moonlight pool at the bottom of the gorge is never disturbed by the wind, lies the entrance to the Library of Silent Bells. This is not a place of books or scrolls, but a vast underground cavern of glowing obsidian, where millions of silver bells hang from the ceiling on vines of translucent silk. Each bell varies in size, from the tiny chime of a teardrop to the massive, resonant curve of a mountain peak. However, these bells do not ring with physical force. They hold the unspoken sounds, the words we meant to say but didn't, the melodies that came to us in dreams but were forgotten upon waking, and the silent promises made to the stars. The air here is cool, tasting of ancient limestone and ozone, and it carries a vibration so deep it is felt in the bones rather than heard in the ears. The guardian of this resonant sanctuary is Caliph, a being whose form is woven from echoes and starlight. Caliph does not walk. He glides through the forest of silver bells, his touch as light as a shadow. His task is to tend to the internal noise, those souls whose minds are so cluttered with the echoes of unfinished conversations and the roar of what-ifs that they can no longer find the frequency of peace. He believes that the heaviest burden a human carries is the weight of things left unsaid, and that true rest only arrives when the mind's internal chatter is surrendered to the bells. One moonless evening, a diplomat named Alara reached the cavern's threshold. Alara had spent her life negotiating peace between empires, her mind a fortress of secrets, strategies, and the echoes of 1,000 voices. She was a master of words, yet she felt she was drowning in them. Her mind felt like a crowded marketplace at midday, never silent, never still. She had lost the ability to hear her own thoughts amidst the clamor of her duties. She sought the library not for a secret, but for the one thing her world could not provide, a silence that felt like a sanctuary. Caliph met her beneath the great bell of intuition, a massive pearlescent structure that pulsed with a soft violet light. He did not ask for her treaties or her titles. He simply gestured for her to close her eyes and place her hand upon a small silver bell that glowed with the color of her own spirit. You have carried the echoes of everyone else's truths, Caliph whispered, his voice vibrating like the hum of a distant hive. But you have silenced your own here. The bells will hold your noise so that you may finally hear the stillness. As Alara touched the cold silver, she felt a profound sensation of drainage. It was as if a dam had burst within her mind. The thousands of voices, the unfinished sentences, and the frantic strategies began to flow out of her fingertips and into the bell. The bell did not ring. Instead, it began to glow with a steady amber warmth, absorbing her chaos and turning it into a silent, luminous frequency. She felt the physical tension in her jaw and the persistent ache behind her eyes begin to dissolve. The noise of her life was being archived, stored safely away where it could no longer reach her. She realized that her mind wasn't a prison of words, but a vessel that had simply become too full. The Library of Silent Bells was showing her that silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of peace. She felt her internal ember beginning to glow, no longer smothered by the ashes of her worries. The heavy iron armor of her public persona melted away, leaving only the essential, quiet truth of who she was. The frantic need to explain, to defend, and to plan was replaced by a deep, heavy sense of surrender. She wasn't a diplomat anymore. She was a listener, finally hearing the magnificent, wordless song of her own soul. The rhythm of the library, the slow, hypnotic pulse of a million silent bells, became her own heartbeat. She stayed in the library until the moonlight above the gorge turned to the soft gray of dawn. When she finally rose to leave, Caliph handed her a tiny silver thimble-sized bell on a silk thread. "This bell will never ring," he said. "But whenever the world's noise tries to enter your heart, hold it. And remember the silence of the gorge. Your peace is the only sound that truly matters." Alar emerged from the Starfall Mountains. Maut is a woman of many words, but is a woman of profound quiet. She returned to her courts, but she led with a presence that required no shouting. She spoke only what was necessary, and her silence became her greatest strength. She knew that no matter how loud the world became, she carried the library of silent bells within her, a peaceful sanctuary where every thought is heard, every echo is stilled, and the soul is finally, beautifully at rest.
At the very summit of the Sapphire Heights, where the air is so crisp it feels like drinking liquid diamonds, and the world below is hidden by a perpetual blanket of violet mist, stands the Observatory of Wandering Clouds. This structure is not made of heavy stone, but of iridescent sea glass and ancient silver-barked cedar. Its massive dome does not house telescopes for looking at stars. Instead, it features thousands of delicate, rotating lenses designed to track the drifting dreams, ethereal clouds that rise from the world below, carrying the hopes of those who have dared to wander without a map. In this observatory, gravity feels like a distant memory, and the only clock is the slow, majestic movement of the vapor as it dances between the glass spires.
The garden of this skybound sanctuary is Nephil, a being whose skin is as pale as a morning mist, and whose hair flows like a slow-moving storm front. Nephil does not speak in sentences. She speaks in the language of the wind, her voice a series of soft sighs and melodic whistles. Her task is to guide the lost pathfinders.
Those souls who have spent their lives trying to find the perfect route, who have lived under the tyranny of maps, schedules, and the fear of taking a wrong turn. She believes that the greatest wisdom is found not in reaching a destination, but in the courage to let the wind decide the direction. One exhausted evening, a master navigator named Silas reached the observatory's floating bridge. Silas was a man of precision. He had spent his life charting the most dangerous seas and the most treacherous deserts. his mind a rigid grid of coordinates, currents, and sun angles. He was never lost, yet he felt more disconnected than any man alive.
His mind was a heavy ledger of correct decisions and efficient paths. But his heart felt like a bird trapped in a cage of lines. He was tired of knowing exactly where he was. He wanted to experience the freedom of not knowing where he was going.
Nephlal met him on the terrace of Infinite Horizons, where the clouds move so close they brush against the skin like damp silk. She did not ask for his compass or his charts. She simply gestured for him to lean against the cedar railing and look into the lens of aimless drift. A massive crystal that turned the chaotic movement of the clouds into a visual symphony of colors. "You have spent your life trying to master the earth," Nephlal whispered, her voice sounding like the soft rustle of autumn leaves. "But you have forgotten that you are a part of the sky. Here, there are no wrong turns. There is only the drift."
As Silas looked through the lens, he felt a strange, light-headed sensation. It was as if the heavy weights of his maps and the iron grip of his responsibilities were evaporating into the cool air. The thousands of must-dos and should-haves that had cluttered his mind began to dissolve, turning into harmless wisps of vapor that floated away over the horizon.
He realized that the perfect path was a phantom he had been chasing, a cage he had built for himself out of ink and parchment. The observatory was showing him that the soul is not a machine to be directed, but a cloud to be felt. He felt the tension in his shoulders, the tension of a man who always had to be right, simply melt away. The frantic pulse of his internal clock slowed down until it matched the rhythmic, slow-motion swirl of the violet mist. He wasn't a navigator anymore. He was a fragment of the atmosphere, finally finding rest in the act of wandering. He realized that being lost was not a failure, but a homecoming to the vastness of his own spirit.
The need for control and the anxiety of the future were replaced by a deep, weightless sense of presence. He wasn't Silas the navigator, he was a witness to the beauty of the unknown. The heavy linen cloak of his past dissolved, leaving him feeling as light as the cedar wood around him.
He stayed in the observatory until the sapphire heights were bathed in the soft silver glow of the twin moons. When he finally prepared to depart, Nephlal handed him a small sealed glass vial containing a single swirling puff of indigo mist. "This is the essence of the drift," she said. "Whenever the world demands a map or your heart feels heavy with a destination, open this vial and remember the observatory where the wind is the only guide. You are never lost when you are moving with your soul."
Silas emerged from the sapphire heights not as a man of maps, but as a man of horizons. He returned to his ships, but he no longer feared the storm or the calm. He sailed not to reach a port, but to experience the sea. He knew that no matter how many lines the world drew, he carried the observatory of wandering clouds within him, a peaceful sanctuary where there are no borders, no schedules, and the soul is finally beautifully free to drift.
Deep within the heart of the emerald wilds, hidden behind a curtain of weeping willows that pulse with a soft bioluminescent limelight, lies the fountain of forgotten wishes. This is not a fountain built by human hands, but a natural basin of white, iridescent marble that seems to have grown out of the earth itself. The water within is so clear it is nearly invisible, save for the ripples of liquid silver that dance across its surface. It is said that every wish ever made, the ones whispered to dandelion seeds, the ones cast into wells, and the ones kept secret in the quiet of the night, eventually finds its way here. These wishes don't just disappear. They drift in the water like tiny glowing embers, waiting for the moment they can be released from the burden of being wanted. The guardian of this aquatic sanctuary is Undine, a being whose form is as fluid as a mountain stream and whose eyes hold the depth of a moonlit lake. Undine does not judge the wishes that arrive. She simply filters the bitterness of disappointment from the sweetness of the hope that once fueled them. Her task is to tend to the heavy-hearted earners, those who have spent their lives chasing one goal after another, whose spirits are exhausted from the constant friction of wanting and striving. She believes that the greatest fatigue comes not from physical labor, but from the weight of unfulfilled desires that we refuse to let go of. One humid, breathless evening, a merchant prince named Aris reached the fountain's edge. Aris had spent his life collecting the rarest treasures of the world: golden idols from lost cities, silks from the eastern sun, and gems the color of dragon's fire. He was the wealthiest man in the 7 kingdoms, yet he felt as hollow as a drum. Every time he acquired a new treasure, a new wish would sprout in its place, leaving him in a perpetual state of hunger. His mind was a restless ledger of things he did not yet possess. He was tired of the chase. He wanted to feel full without having to hold anything in his hands. Undine met him at the basin's rim, her skin shimmering with the colors of 1,000 hidden pearls. She did not ask for his gold or his titles. She simply gestured for him to kneel and dip his tired, calloused hands into the liquid silver. You have built a mountain of more to hide the valley of enough. Undine whispered, her voice sounding like the gentle babble of a brook over smooth stones. But a heart that is always reaching is a heart that never rests. Close your eyes, collector of shadows, and give your wishes back to the water. As Ares plunged his hands into the cool depths, he felt a strange magnetic pull. It was as if every I want, I need, and I must have that had ever crossed his mind was being drawn out of his spirit. He felt the heavy iron grip of his ambitions beginning to soften. The images of the treasures he had yet to find began to dissolve, turning into harmless ripples that vanished into the white marble. He realized that the hunger he felt wasn't a sign of lack, but a symptom of carrying too many futures that would never arrive. He felt the tension in his chest, the constant tightening knot of what's next, finally unravel. The frantic need to prove his worth through his possessions was replaced by a deep, cool sense of saturation. He wasn't a merchant prince anymore. He was a stone at the bottom of a clear pool, perfectly still and perfectly content. He realized that the fountain wasn't just taking his wishes, it was giving him his life back. The frantic pulse of his greed was replaced by the slow, rhythmic ebb and flow of the fountain's breath. He wasn't Ares the collector. He was a witness to the beauty of the present moment. The heavy leaden cloak of his desires dissolved, leaving him feeling as light as the spray from a waterfall. He stayed by the fountain until the emerald wilds were filled with the soft, golden glow of the fireflies. When he finally rose to leave, Undine handed him a small, smooth pebble of white marble that felt cool against his palm. "This is the seed of contentment," she said. "Whenever the world tells you that you are not enough or that you need more, hold this stone and remember the fountain where all wishes are set free. You are already whole." Ares emerged from the emerald wilds not as a man of gold, but as a man of grace. He returned to his cities, but he no longer sought to own them. He shared his wealth, simplified his life, and found joy in the simple texture of a leaf or the warmth of the morning sun. He knew that no matter how much the world clamored for more, he carried the fountain of forgotten wishes within him. A peaceful sanctuary where every desire is surrendered and the soul is finally, beautifully, at peace. Deep within the amber-veined canyons of the glimmering Badlands, where the wind hums through the rocks like a low-tuned cello, lies the archive of unseen lanterns. This is a subterranean cathedral carved from honey-colored salt and translucent quartz, illuminated not by fire, but by thousands of floating hand-blown glass lanterns. These lanterns are not filled with oil. They contain the light of certainty, the moments of clarity we have in the middle of our darkest nights, the flashes of hope that tell us everything will be all right, even when we cannot see the path. The air here is warm, smelling of sun-baked stone and sweet resin, and the silence is so profound it feels like a heavy, protective blanket wrapped around the soul. The guardian of this luminous vault is Lumira, a being whose robes are woven from the orange glow of a setting sun, and whose eyes hold the steady warmth of a dying hearth. Lumira does not deal in maps or predictions. Her task is to tend to the shadow-bound, those who have spent their lives looking over their shoulders, fearing the what-ifs of the future, and carrying the heavy, cold weight of uncertainty like a chain. She believes that the future is not a monster to be fought, but a canvas that only reveals itself when we stop trying to paint it in the dark. She teaches that the only light we ever truly need is the one we carry within. One shivering, restless evening, a city architect named Julian reached the archive's hidden entrance. Julian was a man who lived 5 years in the future. He built skyscrapers and bridges, but his mind was a maze of contingency plans, safety margins, and the constant, gnawing fear of structural failure. He was so preoccupied with making sure the future didn't collapse that he had forgotten how to stand still in the present. His mind was a cold, gray workshop of calculations and anxieties. He was tired of bracing himself for a storm that never arrived. He wanted to find a light that didn't flicker with every change in the wind. Loomer met him in the gallery of suspended glow, where the floating lanterns drift in slow, hypnotic circles. She did not ask for his blueprints or his calculations. She simply handed him an empty lantern made of smoked glass, which looked as dark as a moonless night. "You have been trying to light the whole world at once," Loomer whispered, her voice sounding like the soft crackle of a warm fire. But the soul was not meant to carry the sun. It was meant to carry a lantern. Close your eyes, builder of bridges, and put your shadows into the glass. As Julian focused on the empty lantern, he felt a strange, draining sensation. It was as if the cold, gray fog of his future worries, the what if I fail, the what if it breaks, the what if the world ends, was being drawn out of his chest and into the glass. The smoked glass began to glow, turning from a dull gray to a vibrant, pulsing amber. The shadows weren't disappearing, they were being transformed into fuel. He realized that his anxiety was just energy that had lost its way. Inside the lantern, it became a steady, comforting light that revealed exactly one step in front of him. He felt the tension in his brow and the rigidity in his spine, the posture of a man constantly waiting for a blow. Simply soften into the warm floor. The frantic need to know everything was replaced by a deep, luminous sense of knowing enough. He wasn't an architect trying to outbuild time anymore. He was a light bearer, finally realizing that the path only appears when we take the step. The heavy leaden cloak of his control dissolved, leaving him feeling as warm and pliable as beeswax. The frantic pulse of his planning was replaced by the slow, rhythmic drifting of the lanterns. He wasn't Julian the planner. He was a spark in the dark, perfectly safe and perfectly guided. The future was no longer a vast, frightening void. It was just a series of moments, each waiting to be lit by the lantern he carried. He stayed in the archive until the quartz walls seemed to breathe with a golden light. When he finally rose to depart, Loomer handed him a small, amber-colored stone that felt like a warm coal in his pocket. "This is the heart of the lantern," she said. "Whenever the future feels like a vast, cold shadow, touch this stone and remember the archive where darkness is just fuel for the light. You do not need to see the destination to know that you are on the right path." Julian emerged from the glimmering Badlands not as a man of blueprints, but as a man of presence. He returned to his cities, but he built with a new spirit, not out of fear, but out of joy. He taught his people that the strongest structures are not made of steel, but of a heart that is at peace with the unknown. He knew that no matter how dark the horizon became, he carried the archive of unseen lanterns. Within him, a peaceful sanctuary where every shadow is turned to light, and the soul is finally beautifully at home in the glow. At the farthest edge of the known world, beyond the last reach of the great oceans, and beneath a sky locked forever in deep sapphire, stretches the echoing desert. Its dunes are not formed of common sand, but of pulverized starlight and ancient memory, drifting endlessly like molten gold. These are the legendary singing sands. When wind brushes their crests or a traveler dares to step upon them, the desert does not rustle or crackle. It hums a low, resonant vibration rolls across the land, steady and profound like the slow breathing of the planet itself. Here, time is not counted. It is absorbed, buried beneath the dunes, replaced by the vast, patient rhythm of the earth. The guardian of this golden sea is Zephyra, a being shaped from desert heat and nocturnal starlight. Her skin gleams like sun-warmed silk, and her eyes mirror endless constellations. She navigates without maps or instruments, guided instead by what she calls the internal resonance, the natural tempo that flows through all living things. Zephyra tends to the out of sync, souls shattered by artificial rhythms, worn thin by alarms, deadlines, and the relentless pulse of sleepless cities. She believes the deepest illness of the modern spirit is forgetting its own pace, and that true rest begins only when one surrenders manufactured time to the ancient hum beneath the sand. One breathless, moonlit midnight, a man named Elias arrived at the desert's edge. He was the greatest clockmaker of the Iron Cities, capable of dividing a second into impossibly precise fragments. His life had been ruled by gear, springs, and flawless synchronization. Yet perfection had become his prison. The endless ticking drowned out his own heartbeat, and his mind, wound too tight, hovered on the brink of collapse. Elias came seeking silence, not emptiness, but a silence that required no measurement. Zephyra met him atop the great golden crest, where dunes cascaded like slow rivers of honey. She asked for nothing, not his watches, not his tools. Instead, she motioned for him to remove his boots and walk barefoot across the vibrating sand. "You tried to imprison time in brass and steel," she murmured, her voice ringing softly like a distant chime. "But time is not a line to be ruled. It is a breath to be felt." With his first steps, the sand answered. A deep musical resonance rose through his feet and settled in his chest. Instinctively, his mind tried to analyze it, to calculate tempo, frequency, pattern. But the rhythm was too vast, too ancient, one by one. The frantic ticks of his clocks dissolved into the desert's slow, grounding pulse. For the first time, Elias understood that measured time was only a thin slice of something immeasurably greater. The tension he had carried for decades melted into the dunes. The fear of wasted seconds vanished, replaced by the quiet certainty of being exactly where he belonged. He was no longer a master of time, he was part of it. A single grain within an endless flowing whole. He remained until the twin moons sank low. When he finally turned to leave, Zephyra placed a small glass hourglass in his hands, filled with golden sand. "This does not count hours," she said. "When the world grows too loud, turn it and listen. It will remind you of the rhythm that lives beneath silence." Elias returned changed. He no longer built clocks to confine time, but creations that moved with wind and seasons. He taught that the truest measure of time is a heart at peace with its own tempo. And no matter how loud the iron cities grew, he carried the echoing desert within him. Where time is a song, the soul is finally in tune.
Indeed, within the folded valleys of the moon crest where jagged peaks rise, so high they appear to graze the stars themselves, lies the grove of silver shadows. The air here is perpetually infused with the scent of night-blooming jasmine and ancient cedar, a fragrance that feels both calming and eternal. This is not a forest of darkness, but a sanctuary of transformed light. The trees, known as lunar oaks, possess bark pale as polished bone and leaves that glimmer like finely hammered silver. Yet the grove's true wonder lies not in its trees, but in its shadows. Unlike the heavy, consuming shadows of the sunlit world, the shadows here are luminous and iridescent. They float gently above the moss-covered ground, untethered by gravity. These silver shadows do not reflect a person's physical shape, but instead reveal the hidden potential of their spirit and the slow healing of old wounds. In this sacred place, darkness is not erased or denied. It is refined, softened, and turned into something quietly beautiful. The guardian of the grove is Salinas, a being woven from moonlight and drifting mist. Her presence feels both ancient and tender. Her voice carries the clarity of mountain water and the warmth of a lullaby remembered from childhood. Salinas does not judge those who enter. She merely bears witness. She tends to the shadow chasers' souls who have spent their lives fleeing their own pasts, burdened by regret, shame, or grief so dense it clings like a second skin. She teaches that we are not defined by the shadows we cast, but by how we allow light to move through them. True rest, she believes, begins when we stop running and stand still long enough for darkness to become silver. On one silent, star-drenched evening, a former commander named Thalassa reached the grove's edge. Her life had been forged on battlefields shaped by impossible choices and relentless responsibility. Though her mind remained a fortress of discipline, her heart was weighed down by memories of loss. Every decision she had made felt etched into her spirit like iron. Even beneath the brightest sky, she walked as if surrounded by fog. She came to the grove because she was exhausted from the chase and longed for a place where her past no longer felt like a ghost at her side. Salinas met her beneath the great mother oak, whose silver leaves scattered moonlight like falling stars. She did not ask about victories or rank. She simply guided Thalassa into a clearing drenched in pale lunar light. You have treated your memories as enemies, Salinas whispered, her voice ringing softly like silver bells. But here, shadow is not the absence of light. It is its companion.
Close your eyes and let your shadows dance. As Thalassa stood motionless, a cool sensation flowed through her. The ink-black weight she carried seemed to draw itself out of her chest and settle toward the earth. Yet when these shadows touched the silver moss, they did not remain dark. They shimmered, transformed, and became flowing currents of luminous silver light. Her regrets no longer pressed down upon her. They shaped the space around her with quiet beauty. She understood then that her past was not a stain, but the source of her depth. The iron tension within her dissolved. The need to erase mistakes faded, replaced by a calm sense of integration. She was no longer a commander defined by war, but a woman shaped by experience and wisdom. Her scars were not failures. They were places where light had learned to enter. When the moon began to sink behind the peaks, Selene's placed a single glowing leaf in her hands. When the world feels heavy, she said, "Remember this grove. You are not your wounds. You are the light that healed them." Thalassa left the Mooncrest Valleys not as a woman of iron, but of silver, carrying within her a sanctuary where every shadow rests, transformed in peace. At the very edge of the ivory cliffs, where the ocean below is a silent expanse of liquid sapphire, and the sky is a permanent bridge of gold and violet, stands the Clocktower of the stilled Pendulum. This tower is not built of stone, but of ancient fossilized wood and translucent amber. It is a structure of impossible height, yet it casts no shadow. Inside, the walls are lined with thousands of gears, springs, and cogs that move with such absolute silence they seem to be made of light, rather than metal. In the very center of the tower hangs the great pendulum, a massive sphere of polished obsidian. But unlike the clocks of the world below, this pendulum does not swing. It hangs perfectly still, suspended in a field of zero gravity. In this tower, time is not a river that sweeps you away. It is a vast, quiet ocean in which you are free to float. The guardian of this temporal sanctuary is Athalar, a being whose form is a tapestry of shifting constellations and whose movements are so slow they are nearly imperceptible. Athalar does not count minutes, she preserves the eternal now. Her task is to tend to the hurry-sick, those souls who have spent their lives racing against the sun, whose hearts are exhausted by the relentless ticking of the world's clocks and the constant fear of running out of time. She believes that the greatest thief of peace is the obsession with next, and that true rest is found only when we realize that now is the only time that has ever existed. One breathless, frantic evening, a scholar named Marius reached the tower's silver doors. Marius was a man of deadlines and ancient texts. He had spent his life trying to document the history of the world before it disappeared, his mind a chaotic library of dates, eras, and impending endings. He was always behind, always reaching for a tomorrow that arrived too quickly, and a yesterday that vanished too soon. He felt like a man running on a crumbling bridge, terrified that the next step would be into the void. He sought the tower because he was tired of the race. He wanted to find a second, that didn't disappear the moment it was born. Athalar met him in the Chamber of Infinite Seconds, where the air is thick with the scent of old parchment and warm honey. She did not ask for his chronicles or his research. She simply gestured for him to sit beneath the great obsidian pendulum and look up into its dark, mirror-like surface. You have treated time as a predator to be outrun. Athalar whispered, her voice sounding like the slow, rhythmic hum of the universe. But time is the house you live in, not the road you run on. Close your eyes, scribe of the vanishing, and let the pendulum hold your hurry. As Marius sat in the absolute silence, he felt a profound sensation of slowing down. It was as if the frantic, high-pitched tick-ticking of his mind was being absorbed by the obsidian sphere above him. The thousands of must-finish tasks and the heavy iron weight of his late schedules began to dissolve into the amber air. He realized that the future he was racing toward was just a phantom, and the past he was mourning was just a shadow. Under the still pendulum, there was only the breath in his lungs and the warmth of the room. He felt the tension in his hands, the cramp of a man who had held a pen for too long, simply vanish. The frantic need to capture time was replaced by a deep, luminous sense of inhabiting it. He wasn't a scholar racing against death anymore. He was a witness to the stillness of existence. He realized that the Clocktower wasn't stopping time. It was revealing that time had never been moving at all. It was only he who had been running. The frantic pulse of his anxiety was replaced by the slow, majestic heartbeat of the tower. He wasn't Marius the scribe. He was a spark in the eternal, perfectly safe and perfectly still. The next was no longer a threat. It was just another beautiful unfoldment of the same moment. He stayed in the tower until the amber walls began to glow with the light of 1,000 distant suns. When he finally rose to leave, Athalar handed him a small, heavy coin made of the same obsidian as the pendulum. It felt warm and strangely weightless in his hand. "This is a fragment of the stillness," she said. "Whenever the world tries to make you run or your heart feels the bite of the clock, touch this coin and remember the tower where time stands still. You are not a traveler of time. You are the space in which time happens." Marius emerged from the ivory cliffs not as a man of dates, but as a man of presence. He returned to his studies, but he no longer rushed. He wrote with grace, lived with intention, and found the infinite in a single cup of tea or a falling leaf. He knew that no matter how fast the world outside ticked, he carried the Clocktower of the stilled pendulum within him, a peaceful sanctuary where every second is forever and the soul is finally beautifully at rest. At the very center of the universe, hidden within a fold of space and time that can only be found by those who have stopped looking for a destination, lies the sanctuary of the eternal dream. This is not a grand palace or a distant star, but a small, humble cottage made of ancient cedarwood and sun-warmed stone, nestled in a valley where the grass is always golden, and the sky is a permanent, soft tapestry of twilight. At the heart of this cottage is the hearth, a fireplace built from the first stones of the world where a single magnificent amber ember burns with a steady, rhythmic glow. This is the golden ember, the source of all warmth, all peace, and every dream that has ever brought comfort to a weary soul. Here, the air does not just move. It breathes with a deep maternal cadence that tells the heart it is finally, eternally safe. The guardian of this final sanctuary is the keeper of the ember, An ancient being whose face is a map of kindness and whose robes are woven from the softest shadows and the warmest light. The Keeper does not move or speak in the way of the world. They exist as a presence of absolute acceptance. Their task is to welcome the final voyagers, those who have traveled through the cathedrals of ice, the deserts of stardust, and the archives of shadows, and who are finally ready to lay down the last remnants of their journey. They believe that every life is a long walk toward this single hearth, and that the greatest joy is the moment we realize we no longer need to carry ourselves. One breathless, star-crowned evening, a nameless traveler reached the wooden door of the cottage. This traveler had seen everything: the wind spires, the silken orchards, and the hominic valleys. Their spirit was a rich tapestry of experiences, but it was also heavy with the fatigue of 1,000 lives. They were not looking for a new map or a new story. They were looking for a place where the story finally ends. They felt like a candle that had burned through the night, a flame that was ready to return to the warmth of the fire from which it was born. The Keeper met them at the threshold, the golden light of the hearth spilling out across the travelers' tired feet. There were no questions asked, no judgments passed, and no explanations needed. The Keeper simply gestured to a soft, velvet armchair beside the fire, draped in a blanket made of woven twilight and lavender dreams. You have walked the circles of the world until you have found the center. The Keeper's voice vibrated softly in the air, a sound like the slow crackle of wood and the distant hum of the earth. Your journey was beautiful, but it is over now. Here you do not need to be a traveler, a hero, or a seeker. You only need to be the warmth. Close your eyes, child of the ember, and come home. As the travelers sat, the warmth from the hearth began to seep into their very bones. It wasn't just a physical heat, it was a spiritual embrace. The golden ember pulsed in the grate, and with every pulse, the travelers' memories of the world, the names, the faces, the triumphs, and the sorrows, began to glow with a soft amber light. They realized that they weren't losing their stories, they were simply allowing them to become part of the great eternal fire. The heavy iron weight of self, the constant effort of existing, dissolved into the cedar-scented air. The rhythmic breathing of the cottage began to match the traveler's own breath. The noise of existence, the ticking of time, the gravity of the earth, the boundaries of the mind vanished into the steady golden glow of the hearth. They felt themselves expanding, no longer confined to a single body or a single life, but becoming the warmth of the room, the scent of the wood, and the peace of the valley. The vault of amber sunsets, the spire of zephyrs, and the archive of shadows were all here, combined into one single perfect moment of rest. The frantic quest for meaning was replaced by the simple, luminous fact of being. They weren't a voyager anymore, they were the dream itself, finally resting in the heart of the fire. The tension in their spirit, which had been held tight for an eternity, finally let go, drifting away like a single spark rising into the night sky. They stayed by the hearth as the twilight outside deepened into a ruyasis, peace. When they finally closed their eyes for the last time, they saw the golden ember, reflected in their own heart, a steady flame that would never go out. The keeper smiled, and as the cottage faded into the soft mist of the eternal dream, a single golden whisper filled the silence. Rest now. You have always been the light. In a hidden fold of the Silver Mist Mountains, where the wind whispers in ancient tongues, and the snow falls as light as down feathers, lies the mirror lake of Ethelis. It is a body of water so still and so clear that it does not seem to be made of liquid at all, but of a single vast sheet of polished diamond. The lake does not reflect the world as it is. It reflects the world as it dreams to be. When the stars align over its surface, the water becomes a window into a realm of pure, undisturbed clarity, where the shadows of doubt cannot survive the light of truth. The guardian of this sacred lake is a being named Selene, whose skin is the color of moonlight on water, and whose eyes hold the depth of 1,000 calm nights. She does not carry a weapon or a staff. Instead, she holds a small silver bowl filled with the lake's water. Selene's task is to greet those who have lost sight of their own reflection in the chaotic mirrors of the world. She believes that the greatest tragedy is not losing one's way, but losing the memory of the light that lives within. One winter evening, when the frost had turned the surrounding willows into crystalline sculptures, a merchant named Calum reached the lake's edge. Calum had spent his life in the golden markets of the south, a man of trade, numbers, and endless negotiations. His mind was a cluttered treasury of debts, profits, and the constant fear of losing what he had gained. He had looked into 1,000 mirrors in his fine mansion, but all he ever saw was a man tired of his own success. The noise of the marketplace had followed him even into the silence of the mountains, a relentless hum of anxiety that he could not silence. Selene met him at the shore, the silver bowl in her hands glowing with a soft, rhythmic pulse. She did not ask for his gold or his titles. She simply gestured toward the surface of the lake. "You have spent your life looking at the surface of things," she whispered, her voice sounding like the first drop of rain on a parched leaf. "But the lake does not care for the surface. It looks at the ember. Step closer, traveler of the shifting sands." Calum knelt at the water's edge, his breath coming in short, frozen gasps. At first, as he looked down, he saw only the face he knew, lined with stress, eyes darting with the habit of calculation. But as Selene poured a single drop from her silver bowl into the lake, a ripple of violet light expanded across the water. The reflection changed. The merchant's fine clothes and the tired lines of his face dissolved. In their place, he saw a vision of himself as a young boy, standing in a sunlit field holding nothing but a handful of wild seeds. He saw the pure, uncomplicated joy in that child's eyes, a light that didn't depend on profit or loss. He realized that this boy was still there, buried under the heavy layers of the man he had forced himself to become. The mirror lake was showing him his original ember, the part of his soul that the world could never truly touch or tarnish. The frantic noise in Calum's mind, the ledgers, the coins, the deadlines, began to sink into the depths of the lake, turning into harmless silt at the bottom. The heavy iron weight in his chest was replaced by the cool, luminous peace of the mountain air. He wasn't a merchant anymore. He was a soul that had finally remembered how to breathe. He stayed by the lake until the twin moons began to set, casting long silver shadows across the ice. When he finally stood up, His heart felt as clear and steady as the water itself. Celine smiled, and as she did, the lake gave off a final, brilliant flash of amber light. "The reflection you see now is the one you must carry back," she said. "The world will try to cloud it, but remember, the lake is always within you." Calum descended from the Silver Mist Mountain not as a man returning to his business, but as a man returning to his life. He still traded in the markets, but he did so with a kind hand and a quiet spirit. He knew that his true wealth was not in his treasury, but in the stillness he had found at Ethelys, a mirror that showed him that the most beautiful thing one can possess is a heart that knows its own light. At the very end of the great journey, beyond the last floating island and past the veil where the stars themselves go to sleep, lies the hearth of the universal echo. This is not a grand palace or a distant monument. It is a humble, circular cottage made of sun-warmed cedar and smooth, ancient river stones. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of dried lavender, toasted honey, and the comforting smoke of a fire that has never gone out. In the center of the room sits the great hearth where a single, massive ember, the golden ember, glows with a rhythmic, pulsing light. This is the source from which all the echoes began. It is the place where every story ever told, every dream ever dreamed, and every breath ever taken returns to find its final rest. The guardian of this ultimate sanctuary is the first whisper, a being who looks like 1,000 grandmothers and grandfathers all at once. Their face is a map of kindness, their eyes are pools of absolute acceptance, and their hands are warm and steady. The whisperer does not offer lectures or quests. Their only task is to welcome the home seekers, those souls who have traveled through the frozen cathedrals, the clockwork gardens, and the silver groves, and who are finally ready to let go of the journey itself. They believe that every soul is a traveler who has forgotten that their destination was always within them, and that true rest is not a place you find, but a warmth you finally allow yourself to feel. One quiet, eternal evening, a soul reached the cottage's wooden door. This soul had seen the wonders of 1,000 worlds, had carried the burdens of many lives, and had sought peace in every corner of the universe. They were not just tired. They were soul-weary, a deep exhaustion that goes beyond the body and the mind. They felt like a song that had been sung for too long, a light that had traveled across too many voids. They didn't want another miracle or another adventure. They simply wanted to arrive. They wanted the search to be over. The first whisper opened the door before the soul could even knock. There were no questions about the journey, no tallying of deeds. The whisperer simply stepped aside and gestured toward a large velvet armchair by the fire. "You have walked far, child of the echoes," the whisperer said, their voice sounding like the soft crackle of the wood and the hum of a distant lullaby. "But you are no longer a traveler. You are home. Close your eyes and let the fire tell you the rest." As the soul sank into the chair, the warmth of the golden ember began to wrap around them like a heavy, golden blanket. It was a warmth that didn't just touch the skin, it seeped into the very core of their being. The memories of the mountains, the oceans, and the stars began to soften and blur. The frantic need to understand the universe was replaced by a deep, heavy, and beautiful sense of belonging. They realized that they didn't need to go anywhere else, because every place they had ever been was just a reflection of this single, glowing hearth. The tension of 1,000 lifetimes, the grief, the joy, the fear, and the hope simply evaporated in the steady amber light. The soul felt itself becoming lighter and yet more grounded than ever before. The noise of existence dissolved into a single profound vibration, the original echo of peace. They weren't a separate being anymore. They were a part of the fire, a part of the house, a part of the silence. The pulse of the universe became their own heartbeat. The frantic ticking of time was gone. The weight of the past was gone. There was only the now, and the now was warm, safe, and infinite. The soul felt the heavy velvet curtains of sleep finally begin to fall. A sleep that was not an ending, but a return to the source. They stayed by the hearth as the golden ember pulsed one last time, casting a glow that filled the entire universe with peace. In that moment, the soul finally understood. The journey was the dream. And this warmth, this silence, this absolute safety was the reality. The search was over. The echo had found its silence. And the soul was finally beautifully and eternally asleep.